Hi, and welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. I'm Chris Lucian, and my co-host is Austin Chadwick, and we have a very special episode today about the Summer of Nix. You'll notice if you're on the video cast that we are sharing screen and have a sort of lean coffee up. But first, I want to get into introductions, and then we can get into the discussion. And so I'll just have each of you introduce yourselves, starting with Auguste.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Auguste. I'm a participant in this year's Summer of Nix. I'm really excited about Nix, and I was really happy to try out mob programming for the first time. So I'm really excited to talk about it on the show.
And Don.
Hi everyone, I'm Don. I'm a long-time open source and Linux enthusiast, web developer, and, more recently Rust and Nix. I've also helped with last year's Summer of Nix in facilitating one mob there, and that evolved into me helping to organize this year's Summer of Nix 2023.
All right, and Lorenz.
Hey, I'm Lorenz. I'm also a longtime Linux enthusiast, and in this year's Summer of Nix, my role was a facilitator, so kind of organizing and facilitating one of the mobs. Currently, I'm doing my PhD in rather theoretical parts of computer science, but before that, I was a software engineer, and I also did some mob programming there, in-person mob programming. The program was done virtually, but yeah, I gave it a try, and I'm very happy that I did.
All right, Albert.
Hey everyone, I'm Albert. I've been a software engineer for around 15 years, mostly in web development, although some embedded before that. I'm a Nix dabbler. I was probably one of the weaker Nix users in this group, but for this year's Summer of Nix, I was a facilitator because I have some experience running mobs both in person at previous jobs and also a few remote for various open source events. So I'm excited to talk about it here.
All right, and Valentin.
Hi, I'm Valentin. I'm one of the Nix maintainers, and I lead the documentation effort in the Nix ecosystem. And these days, I also help out the NixOS Foundation to run funded efforts such as Summer of Nix.
All right. Great stuff. So we can move the introduction card over, and we will jump into the intro to Nix, and we'll have Valentin get us started.
Well, Nix is many things to different people. Some think it's a package manager. I think it's a very general data transformation engine that can be used as a build system or a configuration management system or as a tool for deploying software. And it's been around for a while now, for more than 20 years, but it's still kind of a niche product that currently evolves into something that gets broader adoption in the software industry. And the big thing about it is that it makes complex things manageable and hard things possible in terms of making software run. And what's important to me is to make software work in the long term. That's what the ecosystem supports already for a while. And what's usually missing is just more packages being available in it. That's what Summer of Nix is for.
Cool. Anyone else want to chime in on any more introductions to Nix before we get to the next topic?
Definitely. Nix for me is a way to manage the configuration, the programs installed on my desktop, my laptop, my media computer, the one that is connected to my TV. And recently, even on my phone, I have this app, I tap it, I open it, and then I drop into a Linux shell with all of my, text mode programs that I use for development, all my compilers, my tools, and their configuration exactly as I do on all my other systems.
Right on. It looks like Lorenz has his hand raised.
Yeah, I just want to highlight one reason that really convinced me for Nix and NixOS, which are obviously tightly connected, is this whole fear that especially beginner Linux users know that when you change your configuration, then you're really afraid to mess things up, and you get an unbootable state and so on. And what really convinced me of NixOS is that this fear is taken away, because the configuration is managed and you can always roll back at the bootloader level. So it gave me really a new perspective on Linux, and it really enabled lots of fun experimenting with Linux. And for me, this is really a characteristic that that is worth a lot.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
The revolutionary
Take away
thing
my
is really
Sorry.
simple. Nix makes files that it handles immutable and pins down the dependencies between these files. That enables all these magic features that have carried us so far.
Take away my laptop, destroy it. I will rebuild it as soon as I get a new one. In 2 hours, everything is there.
Oh, fantastic. That's super cool. Cool. Well, that's a great intro. Thank you all for contributing to that. And I guess we can transition to after hearing about Nix, what is the Summer of Nix, Don? Can you give us kind of get the Kickstarter here on this one?
Summer of Nix is a, Northern Hemisphere summer program in which participants use Nix to package software projects that are funded by the NGI, Next Generation Internet. This is a huge European Commission program. It's also a great opportunity for users to get paid, to work on open source, collaborate, to do more programming, to upskill themselves in Nix and lots of other skills.
Nice. I guess I have one follow-up question. I don't think it'll bleed into the other topics. So is it essentially just a series of meetup sessions, or like that you would like join on a calendar, or is there more to it than that?
This year we had 3 mobs.
Nice.
And I omitted mentioning that I also facilitated one of those mobs this year. My mob, for example, was on a schedule of 5 days a week, 3 hours a day for, I don't know, 12, 13 weeks, whatever it was.
And so you said that this is a part of a funded program. It's not specifically around Nix, correct? Is it open source, or how does that work?
So the NGI program is this really humongous grant by the European Commission to reshape the face of the internet from Europe. And Summer of Nix is a tiny slice of that, trickling down through multiple organizations. The one that we're embedded with is the NGI Zero Consortium. So it's essentially a project by multiple software foundations, nonprofits, that try to implement parts of that NGI program. And Summer of Nix serves the role that the NixOS Foundation, by which this is organized, took in this consortium. And this is supplying reproducible builds and deployments for the software projects funded through the general program. So we're serving a particular need among others, which others take care of, such as accessibility and translations and taking care of licenses and all these other things. So Summer of Nix has a particular role in there, and this is
Great.
about reproducibility and making the software available.
Right.
Yeah, so to boil it down maybe a little further, on the technical level, NGI funds projects, open source projects that want to achieve specific goals, but they are not bound to Nix as such. And then the Summer of Nix comes in, and our goal is that we take all of these various projects and package them with Nix and provide a smooth experience to install these projects, right? So you have kind of a de facto way of installing them as easy as possible. There's There's web applications, for example, that are open source and funded. And now we develop modules that will enable you to run one of these web services just with one line of change in your configuration. This is kind of the outcome.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. So I think we can move on to the next topic. So Albert, if you can kick us off with mobbing to learn and solve issues with a variety of technologies.
Yeah, I made this sticky because I felt it was the most positive outcome for me with the Summer of Nix, where we were working on packaging these projects. Most of us have not used these projects before, and then we also have members from a variety of experience in different subsections of software engineering, and just coming together, we were able to sort of just brute force our way through some of these weird issues. For example, like as I mentioned, I didn't know Nix as well, so other members of my mob contributed that way. But then I think where I maybe helped was I was more familiar with various web technologies. So like, for example, our first project was a PHP-based project, which even I don't have too much experience with, but I was probably the most knowledgeable in my mob. And as a result, we were able to just paralyze on working through documentation or thinking of ways to experiment and figure out small things until we got to the state where we had successfully packaged it.
Gotcha. Right on, right on. Okay, cool. So it really was interdisciplinary to a degree, right? I guess the first vision I had of this was everyone was Nix engineers or something like that. But just from right there that you were talking about that you had expertise in other technologies or tools and things, and others were in Nix. Cool. What was there any other than the interdisciplinary aspect of mobbing and people sharing their skills from different perspectives, any other parts of mobbing that helped your learning in the Summer of Nix? You or anybody in the panel?
Yeah, well, I can speak for myself. One thing is that sometimes you come across something really frustrating online, like poorly documented. You have to go through source, and I feel like it's easy to give up or just get really frustrated and just stop. And I think with a mob, you were less inclined to do that because you had the group of people to sort of figure it out together. Yeah, that's one thing I noticed.
Yeah, I definitely second that opinion. Like the barrier to how shall I say? Yeah, exactly. Like that pressure of to like save face and show that you are kind of an okay programmer forces you to like really follow through with your own ideas, and that makes you learn better. Just one thing also is like you get to see how other people just work in their general workflow, and that I think is really valuable, because that's definitely I don't have much experience with other workflows than mine, so seeing other people work really is a good influence as to how I could be doing things better.
Yeah, this is something that I also wanted to mention just now, just in the mob, observing how others work and observing how others think. And for a second, stepping back from the actual work and thinking about the issue at hand, but just taking a second to observe how others approach it was really helpful and enlightening. And so I work together in a mob with Auguste. And for example, Auguste is really a connoisseur of multi-cursor editing of files. And I just loved it because I could see that he really knows how to do this. And every time it was his turn as a typist, I was just waiting for the moment where he pulls off these crazy magic multi-cursor tricks. And yeah, it was just a nice experience to learn all the little details of how people work. Yeah.
Well, glad you liked it, Lorenz.
Putting on a show. Okay, awesome. Well, thanks for hitting that card. And let's transition to the next card, because we want to get to all of them before we run out of time. So we at least want to save a little bit of space for each. We're going to go to Summer of Nix as an introduction to the Nix community and NixOS project. Lorenz, can you kick us off on this one?
Yeah, sure. So quite early on, when we were working on projects in the context of the Summer of Nix, we well, we realized that oftentimes the canonical location for packages in the Nix ecosystem is Nix packages, which is one of the biggest open source package repositories in the world. So the discoverability for basically any project is best there at the moment. There's also some development concept of flakes to distribute this a little more, but I don't want to go into such detail. But anyway, what we realized is that we have some intersections with this big repository Nix packages, which also contains all of the NixOS modules. And so you kind of get in touch with this big project, and maybe you find bugs in it, and then you pull requests to Nix packages, or one of your modules makes it to NixOS essentially by pull requesting to Nix packages. And so for me, this was a big push. I somehow saw that, well, it's possible to contribute, it's easy to contribute, and people are just, so very skilled and really mind-blowing. Like the competence on Nix packages and the reviewing process there is just a great way to learn. And we were kind of pushed a little bit to do this more. And this is what I really liked. I now feel that I can and I should and I probably will contribute more to NixOS. And yeah, I had this little push in this direction, and I like that.
Yeah, very good. Any others want to chime in?
Yeah, that makes me really happy to hear, because one of the primary objectives of Summer of Nix is to actually facilitate learning and onboarding into the ecosystem. I mean, I can sing the sad song of documentation that I've been working on for more than a year now. It is not great, and there's a lot of stuff to work on. And the most effective way is essentially by this in-person introduction to many things that are still tacit knowledge in the ecosystem that have not been written down or are in obscure places where it's hard to find them. And while we're working on it, still the fastest way is to do that. And that's what I also heard from all the mobs, that they learned a lot of stuff very quickly. And I've seen the code; it's very solid. It's high quality, and I suppose that's a success.
Yeah, I agree. I think that open source contributions in general can be opaque and anxiety ridden for people that are new to them, and getting a pull request accepted is a scary thing. But when I see it happen as a mob, it kind of all gets streamlined. So it's really cool. All right, so we'll transition to the next topic here. Okay, so onboard less experienced programmers efficiently, and so Auguste.
I guess I'm just going to double down on what was already said. Personally, as a younger programmer, it's definitely pretty anxiety inducing to arrive on open source projects, especially huge collections of code like Nix packages, where there are like rules and conventions and you just don't know any of them. So like attacking it as a group really makes a lot of sense, and really I mean, at least for myself, it gave me a lot of confidence to contribute as just an individual to these projects. So I'm really thankful for this Summer of Nix program, which is open to all levels.
Fantastic. And so maybe just a clarification question. Is this less experienced with Nix, or are there also just less experienced programmers in general that were introduced in this style?
Yeah, I don't really.
There were definitely a spectrum of experience. Our process of recruiting all of the participants was that I, as organizer, recruited the facilitators of the mobs, and then they in turn recruited their mob members. I probably did share an intention with the facilitators that in their recruiting, it's okay to have a spectrum of experience in their mob. it is one of the goals of this program to upskill, to knowledge share. So I suppose in all mobs there was a spectrum.
Fantastic, fantastic, cool. Any other sharing on this card before transitioning to the next one? Cool, cool, cool. So, all right. So, moving on next to making cool open source work more visible and accessible. Valentin, can you jump in on this one for us?
Yeah, I already mentioned that many projects will be ran for the first time by the Summer of Nix participants in the intro, in a pre-recording talk. And the thing is that the things that NLNet funds through the NGI program are oftentimes research projects. Sometimes they improve or expand on existing larger projects, but most of the time they're fairly experimental, as far as I can tell, and have a small audience. And the nature of experimental software or research software, especially if it comes from academia, is that it's often kind of ad hoc, which makes it hard to use for enthusiasts, which don't have the time to dig into build errors and all that stuff. This is exactly where Nix comes in. The other aspect of this, why Summer of Nix has a particular focus, is that while Nix packages is arguably the largest ecosystem for package software in the world, due to resource constraints on maintainers and getting PRs in, especially non-trivial PRs, packaging large software with lots of hacks or lots of configuration options, always takes a lot of time. So what we decided to do is have our own large-ish, medium-sized repo just for NGI software, and use that to improve the turnaround. And at the same time, to improve over the two past iterations of Summer of Nix, where we had a lot of small repos for every project, which are really hard to find. As Lorenz mentioned, the Flakes ecosystem is still in development. It still hasn't really converged. And the tooling isn't really there to search in disparate repositories individually. So what we're trying to do, and I think what's going nicely, is to have a place for publicly funded software to be accessible easily in a way that it just works.
All right.
Yeah.
And yeah, any more thoughts on that? All right. We will jump to the next card then. General challenges in such a program. So Don, you have some thoughts here.
Well, what is such a program? We have we have people coming together who never work together to collaborate for a short duration. We have technologies that are like often a combination of technologies, packaging of software. So you have Nix, and you have bash scripts for building, and you have the project language, and then the rest of the stack, the tools for building, and then some projects are actually multiple different code bases in different language. So the level of complexity, and I think the width, right, the breadth of the skills required for writing the tests for this, which are in VMs, and they talk to each other, and it's yeah, there's a lot to learn, and to learn how to collaborate. And I did a few long-term works, but I hear that onboarding is one of the most challenging or time-consuming things, resource-consuming things, and maybe I'm spilling into to how mob programming is solving this, but it is. It's a great difference. It made the whole difference. It improved this program dramatically. It solved
Nice.
many of these problems.
Nice, nice. Yeah. And so maybe a quick soundbite on it before we move to the next topic. But yeah, what were some tips or tricks you had to overcome some of those challenges? You're starting a session with people you don't know, and what were some of those things that help with that?
I don't know. For me, mob programming just works. Whereas if everyone was to go solo in this program, and we've had this from previous years, they would get stuck, they would get frustrated, and they would seek help from maybe other participants. And that's in the best case. And maybe when they can't get that, they seek help from organizers, and which is too much work. That's not, the organizers cannot satisfy all of that. And mobbing, well, this year we didn't have that. I didn't see much of. I think the only "Hey, can we help? We're stuck" was from my mob that I can remember.
Nice, nice. All
It's a
right.
tremendous difference.
Right on.
Yeah,
right
I
on.
think we achieved a great separation of concerns there. So I was luckily not involved in technical issues at all. Yeah.
Cool. Right on. All right. Well, we'll transition next. Albert, on helping project authors get their work taken for a ride.
Yeah, I think this is Valentin's card, but I think maybe he assigned me to it because my mob did communicate with project authors quite a bit. It was both interesting to sort of work through compilation and build issues when their software probably isn't being consumed very much, and also just trying to find the most effective way to communicate with these project authors. In one case, with LibreCast, this was a library for IPv6 multicast. They mostly host their software on SourceHut, and so we had to go find their project on SourceHut and their mailing lists and then communicate with them through there. And then also, one of our mob members ended up getting in touch with one of their organization members via Mastodon, and so they had a conversation through that. And that was a really positive experience. They were very excited for us to be using their software, and were very helpful and responsive to questions. And then even once we were done, they posted some nice stuff about, like, I set up NixOS and got LibreCast running. Very simple. It was what an experience, and so that was really rewarding. In another case, we also worked on a project OpenXE7, which is an open toolchain for a class of Xilinx FPGAs. And that one was mostly through GitHub. It was at times challenging because there was kind of, just any sort of async communication potentially delay. But I think we were both our mob and that project author were motivated to get the software package. So I felt a strong sense of collaboration in that way. And yeah, just a very positive experience overall.
We had also in my mob, in some session in a certain session after working on a certain project called mCAPTCHA for a while, for a few days, I said to them, wouldn't it be great if we had the author of the project and we could ask them all these questions? And then as I prepared, they said yes, of course. And then suddenly he joined the session, and we had a great talk with him. We asked him all our questions, and he got all the answers. It was
Awesome.
lovely.
Yeah. Okay. And in the interest of time, we'll keep moving on topics. So the next topic is a comparison between previous Summer of Nix editions and 2023. And maybe Don, you can chime in on this.
I think I did. I think it made all the difference. Mobbing solved such as mobbing does, right? And it solved, and especially with the accentuation. What these problems, these challenges are accented in such a program. Mobbing really flattened out these bumps.
Yeah, I'd like to add that in comparison to other programs where a lot of software was packaged, like literally hundreds of projects, mobs go rather into depth than to breadth, but for the better, because the complexities that you tend to run in with complex systems, you'd better share the pain and the load.
Mm.
And it makes
One
for
problem,
more sustainable software.
one kind of common problem that we had in previous editions of the program is rough edges and incomplete features, packages not packaged all the way, you know. And this year was different. The results were proper.
Awesome. Cool. Anyone else have any thoughts on comparisons if you've done multiple years of Summer of Nix?
I think I'm the only participant in more than one edition.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
that was my first personally. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Albert, you got the last topic here. Redundancy and social commitment of the mob when working on open source. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, this was sort of just a point of reflection I had at the end of the program. Was that I've worked on other open source projects and communities before, and it was interesting. Both the fact that we have multiple members of a mob, so if people had to miss a session here and there, there's redundancy built in, just multiple people, and then also if you're volunteering in open source, it's easy to just drop it because you're busy with other stuff. And so there's a commitment to the mob. So this isn't completely the only thing holding us to Summer of Nix, because we did also get paid, a small amount. But just still, I think this could be a powerful tool for getting people more involved with open source in general. So that was just a thought I had.
Totally, I second that. The question, the big question of open source, of how to fund open source and how to organize the development and how to supervise that development to see that the funds are going into good work. I feel that we have proven in this program that a mob for social psychological reasons, it's easier to fail solo. It's easier to fail morally solo. A mob has proven here to be a good way to sponsor, to fund open source work sustainably, successfully.
Yeah, it's interesting because Chris and I mob and ensemble program full-time, but not for open source. And so it's fascinating to hear some of those same things we see. So like something we commonly say is, hey, if I need to step away because I got to handle something at home, or jump to help this other team, the code keeps flowing. And it's interesting to hear similar things happening with open source, and kind of having that redundancy of me not being the only one who knows a thing, or is has the context on this current item. And so that's wonderful. Yeah, any other thoughts on this last card before we start closing down the episode?
Yeah, I think the sustainability issue is really at the heart of the whole business, because, as you said, keeping the code flowing and having someone to know what's going on is not as obvious in open source as maybe in companies, because oftentimes in open source, the project often looks way bigger than it actually is. Nix packages, for being humongous, is, by my estimate, maybe run by 10 to 15 people who work most of their time on it. And lots of the code is added by drive-by contributors with little responsibilities or very intermittent availability. And we've shown in the program that sharing the knowledge quickly, embedding people into the community, and giving them a sense of responsibility for the stuff that they're working on, also by producing great code that is really fun to look at, or a pleasure to look at. I don't know if it's fun for everyone. That this gives everyone a boost. So I'm very happy about how this whole thing went down.
When you've seen enough horrible code, clean code is fun to look at.
I think we can all agree about that.
All right. Cool. So we are starting to hit the end of our time box. This has been wonderful. I just want to say thank you to all our guests for taking your time to join us. And definitely in all the different time zones going on right now. This is quite a wonderful thing I'm seeing. And yeah, before we close, I'm going to leave an opportunity for anybody to plug anything or share anything before we close out. And I see Valentin with your hand raised. So go ahead, Valentin.
Yeah, so I would like to plug the documentation effort in the Nix ecosystem, because not everyone has the privilege to work on mob, although this is the mob community. And documentation is essentially the bridge that we're trying to build for people who have no other way than to consume the software and the ecosystem through writing. If you want to make that easier for everyone, consider helping out with Nix documentation or donating to the NixOS Foundation, specifically the documentation project, which will unblock these things for the coming months and years to make all of that easier and more fun to work with.
Fantastic. Oh yeah. That stuff can be very, very super helpful. So yeah, I second that. Yeah, anybody else have anything they want to plug or share before we close?
I would like to plug Nix as a career choice. From my involvement in the Nix community, I'm seeing that there's work. There's I suppose there's work in anything, but I'm also seeing good people and people that I like. So I recommend the Nix community.
Fantastic.
I'd also like to plug some of the open source mobs that I facilitate. They're free, and there are some Rust ones. There's a TypeScript one, and there's an Agda one.
Excellent. Cool. Valentin, you got something else?
Right. I would like to plug our Summer of Nix participants. While there is certainly some work in the Nix ecosystem, as I said, well, it doesn't really manage to fund like towns and cities. So our participants, some of them would like to get hired, and now they have not just Nix experience, they also have a lot of mob experience, 160 hours to be precise and counting. So if you'd like to get in touch with our participants, I suppose you can share our list of potential hires, and they're free for grabs. I suppose the best thing is they also have recommendations from their other mob members. So you have an idea of what that person is like, how they tick, how they approach work. And so there's barely any risk.
Yeah, as a participant, I approve this message. Thanks, Valentin.
No, it's been a pleasure to work with all of you. Absolutely great.
Fantastic.
Yes. Thank you. I'd like to thank. Hopefully, some of the participants will listen. So thanks to everyone who participated, facilitated, organized. It's a wonderful project and a privilege to be a part of it.
Excellent. Well, we are running out of time, so it's just inspiring to hear you all turning up the good on some excellent things with Nix and collaboration and knowledge sharing and kind of that redundancy and open source. So to our audience, please share this episode if you're feeling inspired and want to share that goodness and maybe help others learn about some cool things about Nix or some cool ways to collaborate in the open source community and help raise up others. And yeah, please like and subscribe. And until next time, mob on, Nix on, and have a good one, everybody. Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.